Hi everyone! Welcome back. Today we're going to be painting a desert landscape scene. So right now I'm just applying the colors that I want for my sunset gradient. I'm going to be going with a yellow-orange sunset today. And then per usual, I'm just going to slap the paint back and forth to mix the colors and spread them around to make my ombre effect. And you can do this with as many colors as you want to. Now a nice second layer to make sure those colors are really saturated and the nail is nicely covered. You don't want to go too thick on any one layer, and you don't want too many layers, or you run the risk of it starting to come off or not curing properly. Alright, and now I'm just getting the brown down for the ground. I have 3 different shades of brown that I've picked out, and this is the medium shade of brown that I'm laying down as like the main base coat. I have mixed in just a little bit of orange in there so that it's like a orangey brown burnt color, so it looks like the light is casting off of the sand. And now I'm going to add just a little mountain in the background. That's going to be in the darkest shade I have, so that there can be a little bit of distinction. And later on we'll add highlights and lowlights. Goodness, sorry. Alright. And now I'm just adding in with some dark brown the outline of some rocks that I think I might put in. We'll find out if I decide to keep it that way. Another little rock right there on that side. Just darkening up that mountain in the back. And then in a bright yellow color, I'm adding in these little squiggly lines so that it looks like the sun or the sunlight with a little bit of heat distortion. Alright, now I'm taking our darkest brown color that we've picked out, and I'm going to swipe it down in a sweeping diagonal motion, like little U's, so that I can give the impression of some lowlights and some highlights where the sun is hitting, and a little bit of movement to the ground as well, because it's got that slight curve to the brush stroke. I'm just now adding a little bit of yellow to the center, where I think the light beams would be hitting the strongest, and giving it just a little bit more of a yellow and brighter look in that path compared to the other areas that the sun hit. Now I'm taking some more of that medium brown, and adding it to this section to add a little bit more of a distinction to the center compared to the other parts. As you can see, I'm adding even more yellow to increase that effect. I just kind of drag the paint back and forth very gently. All along that most center area. As you can see, just with a little bit of those darks and lights, we really have the impression of depth to the ground. All one color, and for this style it looks a little flat, too much light, and you can't tell any distinction, but just the right amount of dark and light really brings the whole concept of variation together nicely. It doesn't need a lot, just a little bit of paint. You don't want it to become too muddy, less is more. Alright, and now with the smallest amount of paint on the tip of my brush, I'm adding a little bit of yellow to the rock and dragging it outwards to make the impression of some highlights on the rock. And now I'm going to be moving into my first cactus. I have 3 different shades of green. And right now I'm working with my darkest shade. And I'm just making a stick, just pulling it straight up. Alright, now this cactus is going to have a little arm. So I'm going to drag some paint over and out like he's giving me a muscle pose. And then his other arm is going to be just a little bit lower. You don't want them even or dead on. When I started beefing up this arm, I realized that I didn't quite like how far out it was before it angled up. So now I'm taking my cleanup brush and I'm just swiping away at the parts that I don't like. Alright, And now that we've got our cacti in, we're going to move on to some clouds. I like to load the clouds bottom heavy, at least initially, and then with a tapping motion, I bring the paint upwards into whatever abstract little cloud shape I feel like having. Sometimes I add a little bit more paint to my brush, but I don't like to get my clouds too thick, so I frequently like to have just a little bit of paint. It's a lot easier to add more than it is to take it away at this stage. Alright, now with a little dollop of paint, the smallest little bead, I'll make some dots of where I want some birds, and then using the paint of that dot, I'll drag up and over to make the wings. It's just the smallest amount of paint on there that you drag around with just the tip of your brush and not very much pressure at all. Alright, let's add some highlight to this little mountain in the background. Once again, I'm taking the smallest amount of yellow and dragging it down along where I think the rays of sunshine would be hitting. And then I'm taking a dark brown that's also a little bit opaque, and I'm swiping just the smallest amount down at the corner where the light wouldn't be hitting to give the illusion of some depth here. And now I'm doing the same thing with a little bit of green, a darker green color, so that it can represent the shadow. I remembered the rock existed and had to go back. I know that I thought about putting a rock over here earlier, so I think I'm going to try to carve out a little bit of a rock using the light highlight color and then the darker shadow color to kind of create the edges of the stone. Alright, and now some of that dark opaque-ish brown from earlier to be the shadow underneath the rock. And I'm just going to add that to all of the objects in the scene. Per usual, just the smallest amount of paint that I drag around. Small amounts of paint really are the key to this type of nail painting, I think. You really don't want to go too hard because it won't cure properly, and it'll also make it so that your lines are too thick. The smaller the amount of paint, the thinner the line. And that really helps for some of this very intricate, detailed work. Alright, now I'm just going to go back and darken up some of these shadows to the level that I want them to be. They can be more opaque if you want, or they can be dark like I like my shadows. And now I'm taking a small amount of yellow that I have mixed some small amounts of a neon orange into, just a small amount of it so that it's a little bit of a yellowy orange. And I'm taking a little bit of paint and I'm swiping it along the side of the cactus that the light would be hitting. Now you don't have to get it exactly onto the green, but you can get it right next to it and it'll give you that same kind of glowy ethereal effect that sunset light does. And then making sure the shadow part of the cactus is nice and shadowed. So now your cactuses are essentially 3 stripes of color. The dark one here you see me painting, a green one in the center, and then some of that yellowy orange on the very outside. And it gives a little bit of that effect of color and shadow and light. Alright, now I'm just touching up all the little dark places on the ground, all the little light places, making sure that I'm liking how everything looks down there. I use a lot of short little brush strokes. Alright, and now I'm adding a little bit of that highlight color, that yellow-orange, to the very top of the border of the land there, so that it looks like some of the light is hitting it really closely. And then I'm adding a little bit of a shadow for the mountain off in the distance, because there would be a shadow for that. Shadows are very important. It really helps add depth to some of these pieces here. I think the highlight and the shadow really bring it all together. Much like life, you need both of them. And here we are, the finished landscape the size of a quarter. If you gave it a shot and painted along with me, feel free to send me a picture on any of my social media. I'd really like to see it, actually. And if you could also drop a like or a subscribe if you enjoyed this, I'll be posting some more landscape sets and other nail art in the future. I hope you had a really good time and have a wonderful night.